In 146 BCE, Rome decisively ended the Third Punic War by sacking and utterly destroying Carthage. The once great Punic city was burned and its walls torn down. 50,000 survivors were sold into slavery. Rome annexed Carthage's territory, establishing its first province, the province of Africa. The port of Utica, a city that had sided with Rome, became the provincial capital. In the meantime, Rome deliberately left much of the surrounding region in indigenous hands, notably the Numidians, its loyal Berber ally. Roman policy aimed to prevent any new great power from rising in North Africa, so Carthage's hinterlands were either annexed or given over to allies rather than allowed to form another rival state. The eastern Punic territories were officially ceded to Numidian administration, including the Tripolitanian cities known as the Emporia. Rome dug the Fossa Regia, a ditch to demarcate the new province of Africa from the Numidian kingdom. By the early 1st century BCE, North Africa's rich farmlands were already feeding Italy's masses. Vast shipments of African wheat helped supply the Roman grain dole. Utica and Hadrumatum prospered under Roman rule, while new Roman estates known as latifundia sprang up on former Punic lands. In 122 BCE, Gaius Gracchus attempted to found a colony at Carthage and rebuild, but this early effort faltered amidst political controversy. Still, archaeological evidence shows a gradual Romanization of urban life as settlers came to Africa. Towns were laid out with Roman forums and temples atop older Punic cores, and Latin began to be used alongside Punic in official business. Local Punic and Berber cultures persisted strongly, even as a veneer of Roman customs spread. In many cities, the Punic Council of Elders and the offices of Sophites continued, though they were overseen by Roman authority. Latin was the official language of administration, yet Punic remained widely spoken in daily life and survived for centuries. Early Roman governors respected these local customs, understanding that stability depended on working with established elites. Over time, North Africa became one of the most Romanized regions outside Italy, but retained a uniquely African flavor. Outside the Roman province was Numidia, a powerful Berber kingdom that had emerged in the late 3rd to 2nd centuries BCE under King Massinissa. After his death, his son Micipsa maintained his father's pro-Roman policy. Numidia flourished as a client kingdom. It sent grain, wild animals, and auxiliary troops to support Rome. Numidian horsemen had already distinguished themselves fighting alongside Scipio at Zama in 202, and they remained a staple of Roman armies. The kings of Numidia also cultivated higher learning and arts, blending Berber and Greco-Roman influences. Micipsa's court educated his children in Greek culture, and one of Massiniss's sons even competed in a chariot event at the Panathenaic Games in Greece, similar to the Olympics. But though outwardly loyal to Rome, it harbored its own dynastic ambitions once Carthage was destroyed. Numidia's stability faltered when King Micipsa died in 118 BCE, leaving the throne jointly to his adopted nephew Jugurtha and 2 sons, Himpsal and Adherbal. Ambitious and cunning, Jugurtha quickly eliminated his rivals. When Adherbal appealed to Rome for help, the Roman Senate initially tried a diplomatic partition of Numidia, granting Jugurtha the western half and Adherbal the east. This compromise failed spectacularly. In 112 BCE, Jugurtha besieged Cirta, and when the city fell, he executed Adherbal and several Italian merchants. The murder of Roman citizens forced the Senate's hand. Once again, it was time for war. The war revealed both Roman tenacity, but also how corrupt it had become. Jugurtha understood Rome's aristocracy could be bought. Summoned to Rome at one point, he bribed senators to evade punishment, and as he left the city he sneered that Rome was a city for sale and doomed to perish if it finds a buyer. In the field, Jugurtha proved an elusive enemy, adept in guerrilla tactics and exploiting the harsh terrain of North Africa. Early Roman commanders met setbacks. In 110 BCE, a Roman army was ambushed and humiliated at Sutul, forced to pass under the yoke in defeat. Frustrated with these failures, Rome elected Gaius Marius as consul, a bold general of humble origin. He took over the war in 107. Marius, assisted by his quaestor Lucius Cornelius Sulla, turned the tide. He reorganized the army and in 106 achieved a decisive breakthrough. Jugurtha's ally, King Bocchus of Mauritania, a smaller Berber kingdom to the west, was persuaded to betray the Numidian king. Bocchus lured Jugurtha into a trap and handed him over to the Romans in chains, and the war effectively ended. In January 104, Marius celebrated a triumph in Rome, and the once bold Jugurtha was paraded in fetters before being thrown into a dungeon to die of either starvation or strangulation. Bocchus dedicated a golden statue on the Capitol in Rome, depicting Jugurtha's surrender to himself and Sulla, immortalizing his service to the Republic. But Numidia, Rome's former invaluable ally, wasn't annexed outright. Instead, Western Numidia was given to King Bocchus of Mauritania as a reward for his cooperation. The remaining eastern Numidian territory was assigned to Gauda, a surviving heir of Massinissa who had stayed loyal to Rome. After Gauda's death, his son Hiempsal II was recognized as legitimate king under Roman supervision. But his brother Hiarbas soon usurped the throne. Roman influence deepened as Italian settlers took up land in Numidia's most fertile plains, sometimes on confiscated estates of Jugurtha's followers. The client kings themselves became ever more Romanized, frequently visited Rome, their children were educated there, often kept as hostages, and they beautified their capitals in the Roman style. Numidian and Mauritanian royalty donned the toga and spoke Latin, even as they maintained local traditions, a dual identity that characterized North Africa's elite class going forward. After Bocchus died, Mauritania went through 3 decades under a mysterious king, before being divided between Bocchus II and Bogud, who ruled eastern and western Mauritania respectively. Their capitals, Eol in the east and Tingis in the west, became centers of a hybrid Punic Berber culture under a thin Roman overlay. Throughout the 1st century BCE, these Mauritanian kings remained generally loyal to Rome, though they pursued their own agendas during Rome's civil wars. The first round of this conflict came in the 80s BCE. After Sulla's victory in Rome, the Marian faction tried to rally in Africa. Though Marius died soon after, his faction continued the fight. Hiarbas, the Numidian usurper, sided with the Marians and gave refuge to many rebels, prompting a response from Sulla. He sent the young Gnaeus Pompey to Africa with Roman legions. Pompey executed Hiarbas and reinstalled Hiempsal II as Rome's loyal client in eastern Numidia. The smaller western Numidia was given to a petty king named Massinissa II, no relation to the first. Pompey's swift campaign earned him the title Magnus from Sulla, and a triumph, a rare honor at such a young age. This foreshadowed how Africa became a stage for Roman power struggles, with local kings as pawns. The second and more fateful round was the civil war between Julius Caesar and the Pompeian senatorial faction. After Pompey's defeat at Pharsalus in 48 BCE and his death in Egypt a month later, the remnants of the senatorial armies regrouped in Africa, rallying around Cato the Younger, Metellus Scipio, Pompey's sons, Massinissa II, and King Juba I, who ardently supported the Pompeians. Juba was the son of Hiempsal II and saw the disorder in Rome as an opportunity to reassert Numidian independence. With a Pompeian commander, he had already annihilated a Caesarian army under Gaius Curio at the Battle of the Bagradus River, killing Curio and roughly 10,000 Roman troops. This shocking defeat demonstrated that Africa would not be an easy conquest. In late 47 BCE, Julius Caesar landed near Hadrumetum with a small force of about 3,000 to 5,000 men, vastly outnumbered by the coalition of 60,000 Pompeian and Numidian troops opposing him. He failed to take Hadrumetum and had to withdraw to Raspina, where he was nearly encircled in a hard-fought skirmish. But Caesar's genius lay in rallying support. He secured the loyalty of several coastal cities, denying ports to the enemy. Publius Sitius, a Roman adventurer in Numidia, loyal to Caesar and King Bocchus of Mauritania, seized the Numidian capital at Cirta, with a band of Latin mercenaries and Mauritanian riders threatening Juba's rear. Caesar had convinced his former Mauritanian rivals, Bocchus and Bogud, to join him by promising them pieces of Juba's kingdom. The climax came in April 46 BCE. Caesar, now reinforced to about 30,000 men, besieged the Pompeian-held city of Thapsus. Metellus Scipio, Cato, Juba, and their allies rushed to break the siege. But on February 6th, Caesar decisively defeated the allied Pompeian Numidian army outside the city. The victory was crushing. Caesar's veteran legions slaughtered many enemies, even after they attempted to surrender. King Juba fled his defeat, only to find that his royal stronghold at Zama had barred its gates to him. Facing capture, Juba took his own life. The proud Numidian king thus perished as his ancestor Jugurtha had, caught up in a hopeless Roman civil war. The remaining republican leaders also met grim ends. Metellus Scipio killed himself at sea when cornered by Roman forces, and Cato the Younger committed suicide at Utica rather than submit to Caesar. Soon, all effective opposition in Africa had been eliminated. Caesar's victory was so complete that an exaggerated 53,000 of the enemy were said to be killed. Caesar wasted no time in reorganizing North Africa to secure Rome's domination. He created a new province called Africa Nova, or New Africa, out of eastern Numidia, essentially all the territory of Juba's former kingdom. The old province of Africa, around Carthage and Utica, was now dubbed Africa Vetus, or Old Africa. Caesar appointed his ally Sallustius Crispus, better known as the historian Sallust, as governor of Africa Nova. Unfortunately, Sallust became notorious for extortion, enriching himself under the pretext of punishing the region for supporting Pompey. Meanwhile, Caesar rewarded his African supporters. Bocchus II of Mauritania received some additional Numidian lands. Bogud remained king of western Mauritania. Sitius was awarded with the old Numidian capital of Cirta, where he settled Roman veterans. With Numidia defeated, the Mauritanians were the preeminent native rulers in the Maghreb. Caesar also refounded Carthage as a Roman colony. He ordered a new city, Colonia Julia Carthago, to be established on the old Punic site. Though Caesar would not live to see it, Roman Carthage rose to become one of the grandest cities of the Mediterranean once again. The civil war flared briefly once more, as Pompey's surviving sons opposed Caesar in Spain. But Africa was already pacified. King Bogud of Mauritania even brought African cavalry to Spain to fight for Caesar at the Battle of Munda. After Munda, Pompey's cause was destroyed, and Caesar held undisputed control of the Roman world. But that was soon to change. Caesar was assassinated, and a new struggle began in Rome. During the Second Triumvirate, Lepidus briefly controlled the African provinces, and there were skirmishes as various Roman officers vied for influence. A native Numidian prince named Arabio, son of the petty king Massinissa II, returned from exile to reclaim part of his father's realm in western Numidia, killing Publius Sitius. Arabio even allied with Sextus Pompey, Pompey the Great's son, against the Roman triumvirate. But in 40 BCE, Arabio was defeated and killed, and Rome consolidated his domain into Africa Nova. He was to be the last king of Numidia. Meanwhile, during the struggle between Octavian and Mark Antony, the Mauritanian brothers split allegiances. King Bogud of West Mauritania threw in his lot with Mark Antony, and around 38 BCE, he left Africa to assist him. Sensing opportunity, Bocchus occupied Bogud's territory and became sole king of Mauritania. When the dust settled, Bocchus wisely switched to Octavian's side and remained unscathed. Having no heirs, the Mauritanian king bequeathed his kingdom to Rome upon his death in 33 BCE. Octavian chose not to annex it immediately. Instead, he would install a client prince, Juba II, on Mauritania's throne. Juba II, the son of the late Juba I, had been taken to Italy as a child following his father's death after Thapsus. There, he received a prince's education in Roman culture, and the young Berber prince was groomed to become a loyal ally. Octavian held Juba II in high favour, even marrying him to Cleopatra Selene, daughter of Mark Antony and Cleopatra of Egypt, a symbol of alliance between Rome and the last remnants of the old Hellenistic dynasties. Juba was later given the lands of Mauritania to rule as a client king for Rome. Soon, Africa Vetus, the old province, and Africa Nova, or Numidia, were unified into a single large province, Africa Proconsularis. This large province stretched a vast swath of North Africa under direct Roman administration. Octavian, now known as Emperor Augustus, reinforced the province's security by stationing the 3rd Augustan Legion there, the only Roman legion in the region, and the legion's engineers helped build roads and forts, further entrenching Roman control. All of North Africa was either a Roman province or a Roman-sponsored kingdom. No independent rival remained. Africa Proconsularis became a model senatorial province, and allied dynasts like Juba II ensured Roman interests to the ocean's edge. But in the east, the death of the last pharaoh has ended one era, and Augustus's conquest would begin another, in Roman Egypt.